Welcome to This Explainer. Look, today we're not just throwing out a few random health tips. We are going on an absolute deep dive to uncover your body's hidden operating system. Think of it as this invisible architecture running just beneath your everyday human experience. Every single day, your mood, your resilience, your entire physical reality, it's all being dictated by forces you can't even see, but they are entirely within your power to understand. By the time we wrap up here, I promise you're going to see your body, your aging process, and your future through a completely transformed lens. Let's actually kick this off with a quote from leading sleep scientist Dr. Matt Walker. It's a profound, honestly kind of chilling statement. He says science has yet to discover a single psychiatric condition where sleep is normal. I mean, wow. That exposes a fundamental truth, doesn't it? Sleep and mental health aren't just loosely related. They are biologically inseparable. But to really get why that is, we need to look under the hood at what happens in your brain when this operating system is starved of its most basic resource. Now, this number, 60%, this represents a literal neurological crisis. When we're sleep deprived, researchers have measured a massive 60% increase in the reactivity of the amygdala. And if you didn't know, the amygdala is basically your brain's primal threat detection center. So if you've ever felt like the world is just totally overwhelming after a bad night of sleep, if you're snapping at people or feeling super impulsive, listen, that is not a character flaw. It's a biological reality. Your brain's threshold for emotional response has basically been shattered. And here's exactly the mechanics of why you feel that way. Think of your well-rested brain as having a built-in supervisor. The medial prefrontal cortex acts as this rational, regulating mechanism. It stays in constant communication with the amygdala, keeping you grounded. But contrast that with the sleep-deprived brain. Without sleep, that vital communication line is literally severed. The prefrontal cortex essentially goes offline, and that overactive amygdala completely takes the wheel. You just become this stimulus machine, reacting to everything without a second of rational thought. It turns out sleep is literally our ultimate emotional regulator. So that begs the question, right? If a lack of sleep arms this huge emotional bomb in our heads, how on earth does a healthy brain actually diffuse it? We know our bodies don't just passively rest, they aggressively repair. But exactly how we survive our own intense emotions overnight has been one of neuroscience's greatest mysteries. Until now. Well, the secret weapon is rapid eye movement, or REM sleep. This isn't just passive downtime, guys. It's a highly active, biochemically precise overnight therapy session. Every time you drift into REM sleep, there is a very specific chemical conversation happening in your head. Your brain is actively working to divorce your emotions from the raw intensity of your memories. It takes all the sharp, painful, high-anxiety stuff from your day, and it literally strips away the emotional charge. That way, you can remember those things the next day without feeling totally overwhelmed all over again. And this isn't just a fun theory. We have rigorous empirical evidence, specifically from researchers like Andrea Goldstein and Matthew Walker, showing exactly how this works. During REM sleep, your brain is doing this incredibly sophisticated sorting. It strengthens the core factual information of a memory, the stuff you actually need to learn and survive, while intentionally throwing away the peripheral emotional distress. It is an absolute biological masterpiece of emotional homeostasis. Scientists actually call this homeostatic cycle sleep to forget, sleep to remember, and it is a crucial evolutionary adaptation. Think about it. We absolutely need to remember the lesson of a dangerous encounter so we survive next time. But if we carried the raw, crippling emotional weight of every single stressful thing that ever happened to us, we'd be completely paralyzed. REM sleep systematically unhooks that distress from the memory itself. Moving into Section 1, the virtual reality of survival, let's take this a step further into an even deeper evolutionary mystery. Why do we dream at all? For the longest time, people just thought dreams were random neurological noise, right? Just your brain firing off garbage. But when we look at it through the lens of evolutionary biology, we realize dreams are anything but random. They are a highly organized, ancient virtual reality system. This is known as threat simulation theory. Get this, 2/3 of our dreams involve negative emotions. And the themes are incredibly consistent across all cultures: surviving attackers, escaping predators, dealing with disaster. Why? Because nightmares aren't accidents. They are an evolutionary rehearsal space. Your brain is safely simulating life-threatening scenarios so you can practice your survival skills. By the time you face a threat in the real world, your brain has already survived it 100 times in the dark. To understand just how incredibly real this simulation is, consider this. The motor cortex activity in your brain when you are dreaming is completely identical to your physical movement when you're awake. The only reason you aren't physically sprinting away from a predator in your bedroom is because of a specialized system in your spinal cord that paralyzes you during REM sleep. When that inhibition fails, which happens in extreme cases like REM sleep behavior disorder, patients literally act out their dreams. They fight invisible enemies, they run into walls. The brain entirely believes the dream is reality. Which brings up a massive scientific paradox, one that really pushes the boundaries of what we thought was even possible. If the dreaming brain is this active, this organized, and this fully immersed in its own virtual reality, can we bridge the gap? Like, can the waking world actually talk to a dreaming consciousness? Believe it or not, yes. In a totally mind-blowing breakthrough backed by the National Science Foundation, scientists achieved exactly that. They established two-way communication with a person having a lucid dream. In a sleep lab, a researcher literally transmitted the math problem 8 minus 6 to a sleeping subject, and from the depths of REM sleep, the dreamer's mind processed that audio and physically signaled back the answer. 2. That completely shatters our traditional understanding of sleep. It proves that our consciousness during dreaming is this massive, untapped, interactive frontier. And the tech behind this is advancing at lightning speed. Right now, researchers are literally attempting to decode dreams into coherent video stories using fMRI signals. By analyzing the spatiotemporal sequences in the brain, they are translating the subjective experience of a dream into objective visual data. We're moving toward a future where the hidden visuals of our subconscious mind could literally be played back on a screen. Wild, right? All right, Section 2, the Master Operating System. So we're clearly dealing with this profoundly complex, highly active biological system. But how do you and I actually control it? How do we take all these cutting-edge insights and use them to regulate our mood, boost our cognitive longevity, and just function better every day? Well, we have to learn how to hack the master operating system. And that starts with Dr. Matt Walker's QQRT framework. These are your 4 pillars of sleep optimization: quality, regularity, and timing. The biggest myth out there is that quantity, just hitting that 8-hour mark, is enough. It's not. If your sleep is constantly interrupted, your quality is garbage. If you go to bed at completely different times every night, you lack regularity. And that's actually tied to a higher risk of all-cause mortality. And timing means you have to align your sleep with your natural chronotype. You really have to hit all 4 to truly recover. But here is a wild, counterintuitive hack if you want to specifically target that overnight emotional therapy we were just talking about. The ultimate REM sleep hack isn't necessarily going to bed earlier, it's actually sleeping an extra 15 to 20 minutes later into the morning. Because of the way our sleep cycles are structured, the vast majority of our REM sleep is backloaded right in those final hours before we wake up. If you're cutting your sleep short early in the morning, you are disproportionately starving your brain of its own emotional regulation. Okay, let's boil this all down into some highly practical levers you can literally pull tonight. Number 1, maximize bright light first thing in the morning to set your circadian clock and demand absolute darkness in the evening. 2, protect those precious morning hours so you can capture that REM-heavy sleep. 3, eliminate the REM killers. Both THC and alcohol severely disrupt this specific phase of sleep, basically blocking your brain's ability to emotionally decouple. And 4, align your sleep to your natural biological rhythm. These are the daily inputs that actually rewrite your internal operating system. But let's be real, what happens when perfect sleep just isn't possible? Life happens, and sometimes we're going to be sleep deprived. This is where science points us to non-sleep deep rest, or NSDR. By entering these liminal, awake but restful states, you can actively force your nervous system out of a sympathetic fight or flight state and downshift it into a parasympathetic rest and digest mode. It is incredibly powerful. In fact, addiction centers even use NSDR to help regulate dopamine circuits and stabilize patients in the morning. It's basically a biological override switch for stress recovery. All of this brings us to one overarching, profound realization. Health is not just a random collection of isolated habits. It is one deeply interconnected biological loop. Your light exposure dictates your circadian rhythm. Your rhythm dictates your deep sleep. Your sleep regulates your amygdala and processes your emotional trauma. Your emotional state then dictates your nervous system's inflammation response, and that inflammation dictates your long-term aging and cognitive longevity. Do you see it? It's all one beautifully complex machine. You now have the blueprint to your own hidden neurobiology. You actually understand how your brain diffuses emotional bombs, how it rehearses for survival in a literal virtual reality, and exactly how to pull the levers of your own recovery. The knowledge is officially in your hands. So I'm going to leave you with this one question to think about. Which invisible biological force are you going to optimize first tonight? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you next time.